America's top diplomat in Israel, where he's expected to press Benjamin Netanyahu on his strategy in Gaza and on what happens after the fighting ends. Antony Blinken's on his fourth tour of the region since the 7th of October. In Saudi Arabia on Monday, Mr. Blinken emphasised the need to prevent the conflict from spreading. Earlier, he met the President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, who thanked the US for standing steadfast with Israel. Mr. Blinken's visit comes as Hezbollah said one of its commanders was killed in an apparent Israeli drone strike in southern Lebanon. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was on the northern border, where he signalled that he's prepared, if necessary, to escalate military operations in Lebanon. Hamas's health officials say more than 23,000 people have been killed in Gaza by Israeli strikes since the conflict began 3 months ago. Here's Secretary of State Blinken speaking after he met the President of Israel, Isaac Herzog.
I've just come from a number of countries in the region, Turkey, Greece, Jordan, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and I want to be able to share some of what I heard from those leaders with the President, as well as with the Prime Minister and the Cabinet later today. And of course, we'll have an opportunity to sit with the families of some of the hostages and discuss our relentless efforts to bring everyone home and back with their families. And there's lots to talk about, in particular, about the way forward. So I look forward to these conversations. As always, it's very good to be with you.
Now let's have a listen to what President Herzog had to say as he thanked Washington for its support of Israel.
And here, with the hypocrisy of South Africa, we will be there at the International Court of Justice and will present proudly our case of using self-defense under our most inherent right under international humanitarian law, where we are doing our utmost under extremely complicated circumstances on the ground to make sure that there will be no unintended consequences and no civilian casualties.
Well, earlier I spoke to our Middle East correspondent Yolan Nell, who told us more about what we can expect from Secretary of State Blinken's visit.
He's got a lot here to discuss, both trying to stop a regional conflict, looking at lowering the intensity of the fighting in Gaza, and also looking, as he was indicating there, to the future, to a post-war vision for Gaza. And the indication really is that this will give some kind of reassurance to Israel's Arab neighbours, who Mr. Blinken has been meeting in recent days. And, you know, he has a day now of back-to-back talks where he's looking to achieve so much, but then events on the ground can really easily overtake him here. Still, the fighting remains very fierce in Gaza from the indications of the past day or so, particularly in the centre and in the south of the Gaza Strip. Despite the fact the Israeli military trying to give assurances it's moving into a new phase of less intense, more targeted fighting. And also, as Mr. Blinken has been trying to calm things down, a lot going on behind the scenes diplomatically between Israel and its neighbour Lebanon. We're getting indications of yet another strike in southern Lebanon taking place this morning. That's not confirmed as yet.
And Yolan, just briefly, obviously the conversation will also be what a post-conflict Gaza would look like.
That's right, and really Mr. Blinken has been saying here that he wants to talk about the future governance of Gaza. This is something that is generally considered to have been ignored somewhat by Israeli political leaders. It's taken some time for the Israeli war cabinet to come around to talking about that, and also just to have a brief plan published by Israel's defense minister last week, giving really an outline of what Israel's strategy could look like, saying that Palestinians will be allowed to go back to their homes. Mr. Blinken has been saying that he thinks displaced Palestinians must be allowed to go back as soon as conditions allow. But there are some indications in Israel's media that that could be tied to a possible new hostage deal to bring home the 100+ hostages that remain in captivity in Gaza.
Yolan Nell speaking to me.